What's the moment you're realizing your friend wasn't a good person? They constantly downplay whatever it is you're sharing, life problems, emotions, general concerns, etc. It was a sad realization. Left his wife and kids because he was in love with my wife, who wasn't interested in him at all. Then literally never saw his kids again and gave up all parental rights. Her next husband, also a friend of mine, adopted them and has been a great dad. She talked poorly about every single person she knew met. When I spent $100 on their birthday and they wouldn't buy me a 69p drink. He was caught stealing from another friend, and instead of even pretending to apologize, he came up with a convoluted excuse to justify it. We went out clubbing and I happened to come across an old friend. She later was making jokes about him being ugly and looking like an alien. He was a burn victim and she knew that. She would also park in the handicapped spots when she had no disabilities. Not really a friend, rather his mother. When I was a kid, I used to hang out all the time with another kid whose mother was sort of the stereotypical Italian mother. Way too involved, a bit of a smotherer, but she seemed nice. Once I stopped around his house. This was the 80s, so no cell phones, and his family wasn't home, but some other kids across the street called me over. I started hanging out with them. Fast forward an hour or so, and the friend who wasn't home comes home with his parents. The mom comes over and invites me in their house to play Atari or something like that. The other kids weren't invited, and it seemed rude to ditch the other kids, so guilt kicked in and I declined. Just seemed like the right thing to do, but friend's mom apparently took this as a slight. To teach me a lesson, she then ordered a pizza, and when it arrived invited all the kids in their house except me. Obviously the other kids went for the pizza and I got ditched, for trying to do the right thing. I was so hurt by it I refused to hang out with her son again, and that was pretty much the end of our friendship. I started dating a really nice girl who worked in a jewelry store. After 3 or 4 dates, she told me that my roommate and supposed friend had stopped by the store to tell her my dad was an alcoholic, which was true, but we both thought it was crude and strange that he did that. I dumped him and married her, still married 40 years later. When everything was a competition, I noticed money missing. Where do I start? We moved to a new apartment together. About a month later, she let her wealthy fiancé move in without telling me until days before, without asking me if it was okay. And I was still expected to pay half the rent. Months later, when I couldn't handle it, I had to ask her to make him cover his portion. She would tell me rude things and expect me to have no reaction. She would tell me how to spend my money and would act surprised when I got pissed off. Then she would say, "Wow, I didn't think you were the kind of person who let money matter to them." After she forced me to move out, she didn't send me anything I asked her to send me. Everything I really treasured that was too big for my 2 pieces of luggage were all lost: paintings I bought for my favorite artist, my jewelry making supplies, my clothes. Of course, she kept everything I ever gave her. I still cry thinking about it now. When we got separated and my life got 100 better. They purposely embarrass you in front of others, then expect you to get over it. They bully other people. This was HS. He called his wife a cunt to her face in my house. I told him, "You're not gonna call her a cunt in my house." When my best friend literally went out of his way to fuck every girl I had a crush on and succeeded. Good on him for doing so. But it absolutely destroyed my self-esteem, of which I still have none. This was in high school. I'm 39 and perpetually single. My fault, I know. When I realized I was going above and beyond to help him, but he was nowhere near when I needed assistance. Fuck him, he was a leech. My friend owns a very popular food truck in the South. She's netting $500,000 a year in revenue. She needed help for a big event, so I went down and worked for her this past July. I worked with one of her regular employees and I asked how the tips were usually split up. The girl told me that my friend keeps every single tip and that she's never seen one. This girl is 20 years old and in college, and my friend is still taking the few $100 from her. That money is a drop in the bucket for my friend, but life-changing for that girl. At that point I realized true greed. Haven't talked to her since. There were several. She talked trash about others' appearances from time to time. She acted like I was wrong for being upset that my at the time BF wouldn't talk to me for days at a time after a fight. Acted like it was ridiculous that I wanted some sort of timeline as to when he'd be ready to talk. She'd yell at employees off the clock. When he didn't pay me back the money he said he would. I had a miscarriage, and in response to that news my best friend attached pictures of her own 3-month-old baby, ostensibly to cheer me up. At the end of her condolence email, we had grown up together, but settled in different cities. I was so stunned by this that I wasn't sure how to address it. I thought she had perhaps attached the pictures by mistake. She was after all my best friend of many years, so surely she wouldn't have been so insensitive, so I didn't reply. For the sake of loving her, and I wanted to continue to love her, I decided it wasn't deliberate, but it was quite hurtful and it stayed on my mind. At our next in-person visit, a few months later, she brought up that she had had the idea to send me the baby pictures, but thought it might hurt my feelings, but also that her baby was just so cute. So she asked her husband, a psychologist, if it would be cruel. He reassured her it would be fine, so she attached them. I was even more shocked by this revelation. I could forgive thoughtlessness, but to have her say to my face that she'd thought it could hurt me, but went looking for permission to do it anyway because her baby was cute? No. It ended our friendship.